So I dropped out of school. I'm not saying anyone has to do that, but I dropped out of school. I knew I wanted to be a homemaker, and I didn't want a career. I just wanted to take care of our kids and eventually do homeschooling when our kids got old enough. Hey everyone, my name is Amanda and I run the blog Faith and Home. If you haven't come across my channel before, my blog is all about encouraging women to pursue their biblical role. So definitely make sure to subscribe and like this video if you are interested in seeing more content about femininity, homemaking, and all those types of things. Today specifically, we are going to be discussing a question that is probably the most common question that I've received up till now, and I get the question from what I'm assuming are women close to my age, maybe slightly younger, and some maybe a little bit older. But the common question that I get is, can I be a homemaker before I have kids? Is that something you can justify? What's your opinion on it? Were you solely a homemaker before you got pregnant? I just get a lot of like, what's your input, and kind of how do you back that up, or how do you explain it to other people? All those kind of questions, because homemaking does unfortunately get judgment from our society. It's not viewed as something that is valuable, which it should be. And I mean, I'm sure, especially from society, I can tell when I talk to people like at the grocery store and I don't have kids with me too, like they just look kind of confused when I say I'm a homemaker. So even though it is somewhat maybe looked down upon once you have kids, even because people expect you to want to be outside of your home, even though I don't think that that should be a thing. And I have a whole separate video about that I'll put down below. But especially when you don't have kids, I think it just really confuses people. And it's something that society has said is not normal or okay or valuable. So I totally understand why I get so many questions regarding this issue, because it's kind of like taboo, I feel like, almost. So that's what we are going to be discussing in today's video. So let's hop in. Okay, so first let's talk about the potential dangers of being a stay-at-home wife before having kids. And this is probably where a lot of people get the stigma that it's a useless role and it's not needed. And being a stay-at-home wife before having kids, you have a lot more time. So if you're not careful to use your time wisely, steward your time, plan out your time, plan your day's events, all those kind of things, then it is easy to be unproductive and waste time. And maybe even, you know, take advantage of your situation and be like a freeloader. So there is danger because you have so much flexibility in your day, every day of the week. And you want to make sure that you're managing your time wisely and treating your role as a homemaker like any other job. So a good way to do that is by making a to-do list for every day, and a weekly to-do list, a monthly to-do list, all those kind of things, which I've talked about to-do list in previous videos. But that's just a really good way to fill out your day and make sure you're accomplishing a good amount of tasks every day that are helping your home, helping your husband, and helping achieve the family culture or just the lifestyle and atmosphere that you and your husband desire. I think to-do lists are super helpful because they let you visualize how much you are actually getting done and doing throughout the day. So if your to-do list is literally like one chore a day, which before you have a family and depending on the size of your home might be like all you have. Maybe you have a small space to manage, so you just don't have that much. Then add stuff into your to-do list. Ask your husband what would be helpful for him while he's working, or to help him accomplish more at work. This is going to be different for every husband, whether your husband's an entrepreneur, whether he works outside the home and does like a skill that you can't really help with maybe. But figuring out what his needs are, what would help him excel in his career, is another way that you can add stuff to your to-do list. If your to-do list is still like slim and you just really don't have that many things that you're doing every day, then make use of your time, volunteer, help other families in your church, get involved in your church, do a hobby. Any of those kind of things are enriching ways to spend your time well focusing on the home as your primary focus. It's very clear in the Bible that women are made to be man's helper. We see this in Genesis. We see this when we're talking about, the Proverbs 31 wife. When we're talking about the Titus 2 woman, we're supposed to be keepers of the home, helpers to our husbands. And going back to Adam and Eve, Eve was created to be Adam's helper even before he had a family. Like, she was created to be his helper, and then they had children. So your role of being a helper doesn't have to start once you start a family. It starts once you and your husband have joined together, and that is when you're supposed to begin being his helper. That being said, it of course is easier to juggle a job before you have kids and still make your home a top priority, because you have that extra flexible time. You're not leaving your kids and you don't have all these extra chores and to-dos throughout the day because of your kids. So you do have way more flexibility before kids. And if you want a part-time job, maybe if you even feel comfortable doing a full-time job, go for it. I think you can make those things happen. But if you do decide to stay home, don't feel like your time is wasted. There's a lot of ways that you can make sure that you are making value of your time, whether you have kids or not. And you are gonna have more free time. Make sure that you're pouring that free time into hobbies, side projects and crafts, like start an online business, or my hobby is blogging. I also spend a lot of time in community and hosting throughout the week. So a lot of mine and Adam's time also goes towards hosting. So I'm constantly getting ready to have people over, cook meals, all those sorts of things. So I really honestly don't have, I feel like, that much free time, hardly ever. Of course, I make my own schedule. So on the weekends, I do have free time, and I kind of schedule those days out not to have to do any chores, but to enjoy them with Adam and enjoy them. Our church takes up like a whole half day. So just freeing up my schedule so I have those blocks where I get like a complete break. But throughout the week, I really do try to free up my schedule and make sure I'm busy up until dinner, doing things that are work related, hobby related, homemaking related. My first priority is homemaking. And then I go into like seeing if I can assist Adam if I've taken care of the home. So then we have assisting Adam. And then after that, I do, either some volunteer or hobbies, and then social time, catching up with family and friends and hosting and all those kind of things. So I make sure that I don't have all this empty free space that I'm not doing like anything with. I think it's easy to have too much time on your hands when you are homemaking without kids, but it's also easy to actually make sure that you're using all your time wisely if you're just proactive about it and plan out your weeks, plan out your days, and make sure that every day you have a list of things that are benefiting you and your home. Like, you don't need kids before you can benefit your husband by staying home, benefit, his career and all that kind of stuff, because if you were both working full-time jobs, chances are you're gonna have a harder time wanting to do all the housework, all the cooking, all those kind of things. There's gonna be some resentment there. At least for me, when I was doing more of a full-time job, or like I had a full-time schedule of doing things outside of the home, I had a lot more resentment towards doing things in the home all by myself. It's nice to be able to split up your roles so you each know what you're responsible for. Like, someone is responsible for working, bringing in the income. Someone's responsible for managing the home and making sure everything is stable, clean, and ready over here. Instead of mishmashing those roles, I just think that there can be confusion, resentment, all those kind of things. So when Adam and I first got married, I was a full-time student and I worked, I think, 3 or 4 days a week as a hostess at a restaurant, and it just created a lot of tension. You know, I wasn't obviously doing homemaking full-time because I was at a restaurant hosting 3 or 4 nights a week. So there was the tension of me like not being home for dinners and just a family like oriented lifestyle of having dinners together, and I was not doing all the cleaning, and it caused like a lot of confusion in our marriage, in our roles, I think. But we soon transitioned into a more biblical marriage, following the roles that God has called us to, because of all the tension it was creating. We were like, we can't do this. Like, what does God have to say about marriage? Because what we're trying to do on our own is not working. And I do plan on actually having Adam and I talk about our marriage testimony and how our marriage brought us closer to God. That will be coming soon. So yeah, make sure to subscribe and ring the notification bell so you will get alerted for that. But I don't want to go into too much detail about that today. But anyways, we slowly transitioned our marriage to walking out our biblical roles and what God has called us to. It wasn't something that was immediate because it does take time to transfer finances to where one person is totally on top of all the finances and the other person doesn't have to contribute. That took us like a year and a half, or a little over a year and a half, to figure out and make the transition. But we slowed back my work and all those kind of things immediately once we decided to pursue more biblical roles. So I dropped out of school. I'm not saying anyone has to do that, but I dropped out of school. I knew I wanted to be a homemaker, and I didn't want a career. I just wanted to take care of our kids and eventually do homeschooling when our kids got old enough. So I decided to leave school, and then I also did a very, very minimal part-time job. I left hostessing and I started something where I got to work from home 90% of the time. It was only like an hour a day. And then every couple of months I had to do a weekend trip for photography. So it's photography related, but that freed up my schedule a ton to be able to primarily focus on homemaking and not have to focus on work, which was really awesome. It also gave me a transition period to learn how to manage my schedule, and I didn't have to feel as completely bad sometimes if I was terrible at managing it, because at least I was bringing in some money. But it was a transition period. Everything takes a while to figure out if that's not how you grew up and that's not what you're accustomed to. But yeah, once we found out I was pregnant, luckily the timing was pretty perfect. I was able to quit my job altogether, and our finances were perfectly fine. We were probably, for the last like month or two before that, just using the money I made from my job to go towards other things besides bills, all the main bills. So, which I recommend. If you are going to pursue a career, try to make it where your husband's income, he still is the sole provider, and so his income meets all your expenses, and your income just goes towards savings or retirement or any of those kind of like extra fluff things, maybe extra spending money. try to get to a point where you're doing that. So if you ever do decide that you need to stay home to manage the home better, to fulfill your family's needs better, it's not going to be like this bottlenecking thing where you feel stuck and you don't know how. So always just be trying to work to that or maintain that. So if there ever is a time where you feel overwhelmed doing both things, you have the freedom to pull back and do just homemaking and focus on one job, because focusing on a million jobs just gets really hard. So having one thing that you can focus on is way easier, especially the more you have to manage. So again, like I said, before you have kids, it's going to be easier to manage both things. It's more just kind of if you're okay doing both things while your husband only does one thing, because it can be hard to do all the household work and still work a lot, and not get mad that your husband's only working. I think that there's a really great balance, you each having your own role and knowing what you have to accomplish and what's expected of each other. I think there's a beauty in that. I don't think it's a bad thing. So to wrap up this video, basically, I think it's totally a personal decision from couple to couple what you both agree on, decide is best, and what you financially can afford and make happen. So, you know, it might be something where you and your husband agree that you should be home and focusing on the home and maybe doing a few like side projects or hobbies before you have kids, but you financially aren't there yet. So that's going to be something that as a goal you guys together are working towards until you get to that point. Or you can financially afford it and you decide that. Or you and your husband are like, you know, I really like my job, I want to do it. Maybe I want to do it a little bit less so I can focus on the home more, or maybe you feel completely comfortable staying at the hours that you're putting in and managing the home. Totally just whatever works best for you and your husband, and whatever your bandwidth is for managing the home and working. I think there's a lot more flexibility in that kind of stuff and how much you can handle before you have kids. But if you are staying home, it's perfectly valid to stay home and be a homemaker before kids. I don't think there's anything wrong with it. I think it's just so individual to each couple. But if you are going to be homemaking before kids, just make sure that you are being wise with your time, because it is easy maybe to get stuck in a rut or something and end up using your free time just to like watch TV instead of bettering yourself. So things like even like books and learning new skills and hobbies are going to help and benefit your family. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing those kind of things. All right, you guys, that is it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to give this video a thumbs up. And also let me know in the comments if you are a homemaker. Did you start that role before or after you had kids? And if you hope to be one, are you waiting until you have kids, or are you just waiting until you can make it happen? I'm interested to get your guys' opinions and views on this subject as well, because I literally think it's so individual to the couple. Anyways, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.